Today we are continuing with Chapter 5. We're doing the second section, so we're looking at 5.2 today. This is all about solving inequalities using addition or subtraction. So our goal for today's lesson is to solve one-step inequalities using addition and subtraction. This is a whole lot like Chapter 2, so if you remember Chapter 2, solving equations, if you were good at that, this should probably be a piece of cake for you. Anyone need more time with this slide? So here's some good news for you. You already know how to do this. Doesn't that feel good?
Yes.
All right. This is what you need to write down. So today we are solving inequalities the exact same way we solve equations. So the first thing you want to do is isolate the variable using inverse operations. Next, you want to keep your inequality symbol the same. Then we graph the solution on the number line. I'm going to add something that's very important. You have to make sure your variable is written in the front. And you will see more about what that means when we get to some examples. But we always, when we're doing inequalities, we want the x to come first. So if you get like 7 is greater than x, we want to rewrite it so that the x is in the front. Okay? So first we get the variable by itself using inverse operations. Remember, inverse operations are operations that undo each other. So if you want to undo adding, you subtract. If you want to undo subtraction, you add. Now, inverse operations with addition and subtraction don't change the way the inequality is written. So if it's x is less than something, it's still x is less than after you do your inverse operations. Alright, then this one kind of goes right here if you want to put them in order. We got to make sure the variable is written in front. It just makes graphing easier, it makes grading easier, it makes all of our answers more consistent. And then we graph on the number line just like we were doing yesterday. So I give you guys a couple minutes to get all that information down. Let me know if you have questions on anything. So you would read this problem, x plus 6 is less than 11. We are supposed to solve this and graph it. So I gave you a little blank number line at the bottom. You should put that in your notes as well. Now, this problem is exactly like what we did in Chapter 2. The only difference is that in Chapter 2, this was an equal sign. Now it's the less than symbol. So, it's still the place where you want to put your line of equality. Anything you do to one side, you got to do to the other. We're using inverse operations to get x by itself. So how do you undo adding 6? Subtract 6. So I want to subtract 6 from the left. If you subtract 6 from the left, you got to subtract 6 from the right as well. The 6's are gone. You're left with just the x. Now, it was very easy with equations because it was always just an equal sign. Now you got to pay a little bit closer attention to what the symbol was and keep it the same.
It is the same because 11 minus 6 is 5.
Yeah. Yep. So x is less than 5. That is our answer here. So in equations, if you put x equals 5 or just 5, I gave you credit either way. Here I have to see this part. I have to see the x is less than 5. If you just said 5, your answer will be wrong. Okay? Now we graph it on a number line. So again, I'll put my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to keep going, you can. I'll just put the markings till it fills up. Alright, just like yesterday, circle that number that we're talking about on the number line. If it's an or equal to, you're going to fill in that little circle you just drew to show that the 5 is included. Here the 5 is not included. And we want to show all the numbers that are less than 5, so I'm going to shade to the left. Do you guys have any questions so far? Do you see how this is almost exactly the same as chapter 2 stuff? Just sort of mixed with what we did yesterday? Putting two things you should already know together into one concept? What are your questions? Anyone need more time? All right, here's problem number 2. We're going to do the same thing. Give you a second to write it down. Here we have x plus 2 is greater than 3. I want to solve it, and I want to graph it. Alright, so we still have our line of equality. Anything you do to the left side, you got to do to the right side. How am I going to get rid of that plus 2?
You subtract 2 by both sides.
Subtract 2 from the left, subtract 2 from the right. Very good. So we're going to have x, keep your symbol the same, greater than 1. That is your answer. Now I would like to graph that on the number line. So I have 0, 1, 2. You can put the negatives if you want. Circle the 1. Am I going to fill it in? No, it's not an or equal to. It's just a greater than. So am I going to go left or right?
Right.
Right, very good. Raise your hand if you have a question. Still have the line of equality here. How can you undo subtracting 1? Add 1. If you add 1 to the left, you add 1 to the right. We have an x on the left side, a less than or equal to
7.
7. Very good. You can jump right into the graph. Put 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Circle the 7. Do I fill this one in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go to the left.
It's an or equal to, so we have to fill it in. And then we want less than that 7, so I'm going to go to the left. Now, if you don't want to shade the whole number line, you can just shade an arrow. That implies that you're shading the whole thing. Questions? All right, number 4. Same setup, so as you are writing this, you can do your line of equality. How do you undo subtracting 3? Add 3, so we'll add 3 to the left side, we'll add 3 to the right side. That gives me x is greater than or equal to 8. That is my answer. Circle a little neater. To graph this, I need 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Fill in the circle or leave it open? Fill it in because it's an or equal to. And then I want the x values that are greater than 8. So am I going to draw my arrow to the left or to the right? Right. Numbers are bigger when you go to the right. So numbers that would make this true, numbers that are greater than 8, are numbers like 9, 10, 11, and 12. Okay? So for number 5. How do I get the x by itself? Subtract 10 from both sides. On the left, what is 13 minus 10? What is it? 3? Keep your less than symbol. Then we have our x. So normally we'd be done at this step, right? But I told you I always want what in the front. Before we even graph, what do you need to write in the front? The x. I don't want the 3 in the front. I want the x in the front. We always write this as x less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, a number. Okay, we need the x part in the front. So I'm going to switch the order here. I'm going to write the x in the front. I'm going to write the 3 in the back. Now, the big mouth was eating which one? The x. So when I rewrite it, the big mouth should still be eating the x. So when you rewrite it, you have to make sure the mouth part, the big part, the chomper, is still eating the same part. Okay? If x was bigger than 3, when you rewrite it, x is still going to be bigger than 3. So this step, you got to kind of slow down and make sure it's facing the right direction. What are your questions? Now we can graph it. So now I can put the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, and so on. I want to circle the 3. Fill it in or leave it open? Leave it open, and then we talked about how x is bigger than the 3, right? So I want to show all the numbers bigger than 3, so that's to the right. This was kind of a tricky one because of this step right here. Raise your hand if you have questions. X is back in the front, so this shouldn't be too tricky. What am I going to do to get the x by itself? Add 4. We're going to do subtracting 4 by adding 4. On the left side, I just have the x. The 4's are gone. I had a less than symbol. I'm still having a less than symbol.
That's the -2.
And then we get a -2 back here. Very good. The signs are different, so you subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. To graph this, we'll put the 0 farther on the right than we're usually doing because we're going into the negative. We want to focus in on the negative. So I'm going to circle the -2. Am I going to fill it in? No, it's not an or equal to. And then I want to show numbers that are less than -2. So is that to the left or to the right? To the left. Very good. So shade in that direction, shade in the arrow to show that your graph keeps going on. And you're done. Now, some students always say, like, well, how do I know if I'm right? Well, very good question. What is a number that would be in this shaded region?
A negative number.
Negative what? -3, someone said. So if you want to see if this is right, pick a number from the shaded region and put it in the original inequality. What is -3 minus 4? Is -7 less than -6? It is. So you know you did it right. Okay? So if you are someone who likes to check your work, that's how you could check your work. Okay? Pick a spot from your graph that's shaded. Pick a number. Plug it into the original equation for the x, and then see if the inequality you get is true. -7 is less than -6. Remember, the bigger the negative, the smaller the value of the number. What are your questions? All right, we're going to 10 examples if you're wondering how long this fun is going to keep on going.
There's flying by.
Alright, how do I undo adding 9? Subtract 9. Subtract 9 from the left, subtract 9 from the right. That leaves you with x greater than or equal to, what's 10 minus 9? 1. So to graph this, we can start with our 0. Then you have the 1 right away, so you don't really need a lot of numbers on the number line. I'll fill some in just to make it look extra fancy for you. Alright, circle the 1. Do you fill it in or leave it open? Fill it in, because this is an or equal to inequality. Remember, when there's a line underneath, you have to fill it in. And then I'm wanting numbers that are greater than or equal to 1. So would that be to the right, like 2, 3, 4, or would it be to the left, like 0 and the negatives? To the right. Greater than is to the right. So I told you yesterday, if you're not really big on like shading it in real dark, you could use a squiggly line too. It makes it very obvious which direction you're going. Questions? Alright, here is number 8. It's another tricky one. I'll give you a second to write it down. Alright, so this is one of those trickier ones because the x is not in the front, so we're going to have to take a little extra time at the end. But just start by focusing on the x and figuring out how you're going to isolate it. So how am I going to get this x by itself? Subtract what? 11. I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. What is 8 minus 11? Negative 3. You're taking away more than you had, so you're going into the negative. The symbol stays the same. I haven't done anything to change that symbol, so keep it greater than, and then the x. Do I want to write my answer, my final answer, like this? No, you have to put the x in the front. So just like I always do, I did on the last one, I always just flip-flop them, then figure out the symbol. So write the x in the front, write the negative 3 in the back. The big mouth was eating which one? The negative 3. So make it eat the negative 3 again. Do not just keep it the same. You will be writing it wrong. You got to stop and think about it. Okay, the x was smaller, the x should still be smaller. So we're going into the negatives, so put your 0 a little farther to the right than we've been doing. So 0, here would be negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. You can keep going if you'd like. We're going to have that circle on the negative 3, since that was my solution. Am I going to fill that circle in? No. I want to show the x's that are smaller than negative 3. So am I going to go to the left or to the right? Left. Less than is always to the left. Questions? Anyone need more time with this one? Kind of tricky. Alright, I'm going to do 2 more on the board, but you're not required to write them down. So number 9 and number 10, you can just watch, soak it in, let me know if you have questions, but you don't need to write it. Again, you don't need to write this one. You can just follow along. We're going to do these pretty quickly. I want you to have some time to do your homework. So how do I get the x by itself here? Subtract 6. Subtract 6. So x less than or equal to negative 3. How do I graph this? Put the 0, yep, we'd have 0 over here, then negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Okay, so circle the negative 3. Am I going to fill it in or leave it open? Fill it in, and then I'm going to the left because it's less than. What are your questions? Again, you did not need to write this down. So anyone who's writing, you probably won't have time to finish it. The whole point is that we're going to go quick. Questions? All right. Boom. 10. What do I do? What? Subtract 8. Subtract 8. I have x. Keep the symbol the same. Greater than. What is 11 minus 8? 3. How do I graph this? 0. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Circle the 3. Fill it in or not? No, because it's not an or equal to. And then I want to show numbers that are bigger than 3, so I'm going to go to the right. Raise your hand if you have any questions. So on this assignment, it says one-step inequalities. You are doing number 1 through number 8 tonight, okay?
What about the other?
And then you're finishing the rest on Friday. So tomorrow you'll finish the rest. So if you want to give the rest of it a shot, be my guest. You might have to go back and fix some things since you haven't learned it all. But this entire thing is due on Monday. You should get the first 8 done tonight. Finish the rest tomorrow. Turn it in after the weekend. Any questions on what your assignment is?